Premier, welcome.
Thank you.
It's always good to have you here in the middle of January.
Well, I'm always good. I'm pleased to be here at this conference. I think it's a very important conference, and I've been to promote the BVI as a destination both for financial services and tourism. I think.
Well, as you and your colleagues used to say on the campaign trail, thank you for your kind words. Premier, from all indications, 2015 was a particularly strong year for you and your government, and by extension, obviously, the country. It finished off, I want to say my words, forgive me, but I do have the liberty of being chairman and some license. You finished off, I think, very strongly. Just a couple of things, for example, last year you successfully shepherded the McKenzie study to completion and began the implementation. We opened the extended cruise pair. You were successful in removing us from the French backlist, an issue that we've all discussed at probably 2 conferences over the last several years. You seem to have made some movement on the beneficial ownership with Her Majesty's government. There's considerable infrastructure work going on, sewage, water, and electricity, to name a few. How can you top that in 2016?
Well, Russell, I want to thank you for laying it all out for me, right? You know, we were returned to office in 2011 with quite a significant majority, and also earlier this year. And having been returned to office with the confidence of the people of the British Virgin Islands, we had no choice but to perform. Right? And so we set out trying to, build the economy. And all what we did, how we've been doing during those past couple of years, is essentially setting the stage, building infrastructure, so that now as we go into 2016 and beyond, we'll be able to take advantage of all that infrastructure building and hope to see real growth, both in the economy and also in the social fabric of the country. Right now, one of the major things that we're taking on is the whole question of national health insurance. We think this is extremely important because we believe that everybody in this country should have the right to good health care. And we think that's one of the responsibilities of government. So that is one of the major initiatives we're undertaking this year. But along with that, from an economic point of view, having set the groundwork, for example, having the infrastructure for the ports, the airlift and all that, we expect to be able to capitalize on what has been done to see much increase in as far as tourism and financial services goes.
Good. How difficult was it to get off the French backlist? I know there was a lot of long negotiation and discussions and back and forth.
That was quite a challenge.
Yeah.
It was quite a challenge because it was unfortunate that we got there in the first place. Yeah. But immediately having recognized that we put in place changes necessary within the government structure, we created what we call the International Tax Authority, which was focused on addressing our question, responding to the inquiries from our treaty partners.
Right. And
they have performed exceedingly well. We were able to get up to speed, within a reasonable time. Sure. The challenge was, having done that, was to be able to have the French acknowledge
the work we've done.
The work that we have done. Yeah. That took some time because we had to, there's politics of everything, and that took some time. Good. But at the same time, we had to also address the OECD and the challenge of the OECD. And so, having got past the challenge of OECD, I think the French were more at liberty, more responsive. And with all that we did, we're able to say to us, okay, BVI is now off a list and we are ready to continue.
I think it certainly came at a good time, and Premier, you should be commended because as citizens, we all harangue you. When is it going to happen? Why is it on so long? Why is Bermuda's off? When is BVI coming off? And sometimes, as citizens, I'm sure we don't have an appreciation for the work that it takes behind the scene to to get things done. And so I want to commend you personally for your efforts.
Yeah. I want to say actually that many other people and of corporation were involved in working with us. The governor, for example, the British government,
Good.
my colleagues in the Eastern Caribbean, the CARICOM, they were all involved in working with us and helping to get this achieved.
Yeah. Well, it certainly sounds like it was a lot of work behind the scenes, and I want to commend all for starting off the year on that good foot. Moving right along, yesterday, Premier, you announced an agreement with BVI Airways to commence direct flights starting in the fall. You branded it as a game changer. Why is this a game changer for the BVI?
It's a game changer, Russell. This is one of the infrastructural things that I spoke about earlier, right? It has been recognized for quite a long time that since the departure of American Eagle from the hub in Puerto Rico, serving the BVI, that we were challenged when it comes to airlift, people getting into the country. Many years ago, it was considered good to be able to get to these distant destinations. We were then considered exotic, and people who had wealth were able to go there and really enjoy. But today, things are different. The modern traveler, modern tourist wants to get where he wants to get to
speedily,
and not have to take 2 days, right? And so once we have this flight, once it be announced, once it starts in October, hopefully, then people will be able to get here in a relatively short time. Imagine 2.5 hours from Miami to Tortola and back. And even I can go there on a business trip.
And get home
7 o'clock in the morning, get back home in the afternoon. That's terrific, right? And so that, as well as being able to get here, it will also say to potential investors who are out there who are interested in other developments within BVI, particularly in the tourism sector, that, okay, now I can start and look at these other developments. I can look at resort development or the hotel development, things which we will need as we continue to see increased traffic. We need more beds, right? And I expect that there will be more interest, greater interest now in those kind of developments.
I think certainly it's, as you said just now, it covers, it's a project that's going to affect both sides of the economy, whether it's tourism, financial services, or other areas, and that can only be good for the long term as we move forward. How do you see the Miami flight dovetailing with your planned continued work at the TB Letson International Airport?
What it will do is it will establish the viability of the flight between, major hubs and the BVI. That will also encourage people, other airlines, to fly once you get going, right? But it does not take away from the need for the expansion of the airport. To fly from Miami to BVI is good, but we need to be able to fly to other hubs. We need to be able to fly from New York and other major centers in America. If you look at all the destinations from which flights go to St. Thomas, for example, or the Caribbean Islands, there are 5 or 6 major cities in America that go direct to these islands. This means the potential for increased visitors is even greater, and this is what we will get once we expand the airport. And of course, we'll be able to, the connections from Europe will also be even better.
Let's switch a little bit to the McKenzie study, and certainly in the, you can say it now, in the last term in office, you spent considerable energy on financial services, and for good reason. If we get, as it is now, I think 60 cents of every dollar, we better make sure it's going to continue to happen, or God help us. How do you see, once the McKenzie study is all done and the implementation phase is done, how do you see that really changing the financial services sector, and more importantly, the overall economy going forward, in terms of strengthening it and what have you?
In many ways. I think we've recognized for a long time that in BVI, we need to change some of the things we do in order, for example, to be more receptive of people who come to do business in the BVI. That is one of the areas things that the McKenzie study has addressed. As you know, the McKenzie study had like 10 initiatives we are concentrating on, and there are several sponsors. One of the sponsors was Mr. Jared Farrar, who was one of the speakers, and he dealt with the immigration and labor issue, right?
A challenging one.
Exactly, right? And I must say that he did quite a thorough job working with the Department of Immigration and Labor, and has presented a report which will soon be presented to the cabinet where we can make decisions.
Good.
But the reality of that report is that the whole thrust is to be able to be more welcoming as a country to people who want to come and do business with us.
Right.
That's part of the whole trust,
Yeah.
you know. For example, speaking about one-stop shop, so you don't have to go to, if you want to get here, to several different departments and spend days, right, in doing that. Having your medical tests done overseas as having them done here. There are many issues which can be resolved, which will be resolved as a result of that report, and also because we've been looking at these issues before. So hopefully within a short time, those decisions will be made and will make quite an impact. Apart from that, of course, there are all the other things which the McKenzie report address, which is sponsored address. The question of capacity building, right? This will focus our attention on what we need to do to increase the ability of BVI lenders to be more engaged in the financial service. That's important.
Yeah. Okay.
As a country, you know, even though it is important to have all the right players in the financial services industry, that is players from UK or where they come from, it is also important that BVI lenders understand what it means, what the financial service industry means to us, and how they can be more involved in it.
Yeah.
And I think Mrs. Smith has done a very good job as head of that particular area in trying to sensitize the public and also working within the system to be able to further educate our people.
Yeah.
There's, for example, you know, a review of the role of the Financial Services Institute. I'll be hearing more of that in a few weeks, so that can be more important when it comes to preparing our people as well.
I take it from all you've said there, it's clear that the implementation phase is well on its way. You mentioned the report submitted by Honorable Ferrara, I should call him. That certainly speaks to me too, that this thing is being implemented and we're moving fast down the track to get that done, which is a good sign, because sometimes, you know, with the studies that are done and it takes a while before you move to the implementation phase.
No, there's no question about that. Once we got this study done, we have a commitment to have all those those things done within a short time. I think the director of the implementation unit has 18 months
left.
18 months to get all these things implemented. And we meet regularly, so
good.
He knows I expect a lot of him.
So you're keeping a close eye on it.
Of course, with all the other initiatives included, what you call value added. We've been speaking for a long time about the need to add more value to what we do here in financial services. Good. That is the focus of one of the committees. And I know that it's led by the financial secretary. They've had several meetings, and I know that they're doing a great job, and hopefully in a short time we'll be hearing what they have to present to us and be able to implement those things as well.
But I think it's encouraging that, as you indicated, it's moving along. Let's switch to another area. You spent considerable time too in the last term building relationships. The world runs on relationships, and I'm sure you're very, very well aware of that. For the BVI, there are, to me, two centers of critical relationships. You certainly have London, and for all the obvious reasons, it is, and the gateway to some extent into Europe. But increasingly, Asia, from an economic side, is also a center in my estimation. Can you speak to the importance of both a little bit, and if you can, also the difference between the two?
Basically, Russell, BVI, the way we position If you look at the makeup of the people of the BVI, we are a multicultural society. If you look at the business that we're involved in, both tourism and financial services, these are international industries. Right? And if you really think about it, we depend to a large extent on working with many of the countries, the UK, Hong Kong, China, for to be able to our business to continue. And therefore it's essential that we continue to build relationships with those countries in order to be able to foster this business development. London is a gateway to Europe. Hong Kong is a gateway to China and the rest of Asia Pacific region. And therefore it has been logical for us to establish relationships and build relationships within those two countries. Several years ago we started the London office, and that has been doing a great job helping to position us within Europe, and of course specifically to deal with the financial services, beneficial ownership, and all those issues. And of course, there's a huge business relationship with the City of London. Several of other jurisdictions have published reports which demonstrate the value that they bring to the City of London, which is considerable. The BVI wants to publish a report to show, I'm sure, the similar benefit to the City of London from our relationship, right? So we have that office, and we are continuing to build relationships there, both politically and from a business point of view, right? In Hong Kong, we have to do the same thing, right? Because we recognize that for over the past 30 years, we've been doing a lot of business with China, but there's a lot of competition. And so if we want to remain in the game, we have to build relationships. And that's why we established an office in Hong Kong. And that's why we have memorandum of understanding with Shenzhen, a city, one of the major cities in China. And that is why we're also exploring memorandum of understanding with other major cities in China, and perhaps to start in a number of other offices in those cities, all about building relationships. And of course, we spoke about having a letter of entrustment to be able to do what we do in China. And I want to thank the governor for working with us too. And we finally got that letter of entrustment not too long ago. Right. And so we are now able to work more assiduously, develop more relationships, develop our businesses better in China than we were before.
Certainly, I think I didn't add that to my list, but you clearly added it. I think that's, if I may add to what you just said, quite an important accomplishment.
Absolutely.
And certainly, Your Excellency, I want to thank you for your efforts, because I've been premaxing it. When is it going to happen? And I'm sure Elise has been hammering when is it going to happen? If we are going to really develop that relationship, that's a critical piece of the puzzle, and it's very good to hear. So I'm even more bullish on the BVI than I started out early on. You said something that was interesting, and sometimes for us in the BVI citizens, we tend to think that yes, we are small, and that's the very nature of our size infrastructurally in terms of land mass. We have more water than land. But we punch above our weight, if I can put it that way, in the world. To hear you say as the Premier that BVI contributes to the City of London and its economic well-being, I think the City of London, 6 in 10 people work in financial services. So all of these overseas territories that Her Majesty has, it is good to see that we are helping in our own way. And sometimes I think we as a citizenry and as a people, we have to sometimes step up to the plate and say, look, we are helping, and be recognized for it. That's my own
That
take
is true, Russell, and I think we perhaps don't tell the story as robustly as we should about what the BVI is doing, about our business activity, the nature of our business activity. Now it contributes to international business. And so I think we have a relatively new agency now working with us, and I expect that during this year we'll be doing more of that.
And it's not to belabor the point, but it's an important point. We can talk about China all day today in many ways. It's a similar relationship, as you said, with China. I mean, the rise of China, and it's an interesting study for someone to do it in some point. The rise of China and the relationship, a little small speck in the ocean the BVI had in that relationship, in that rise. It's quite a story. Switching a little bit, Premier, to other things, entrepreneurship. I know it's an area that you feel very strongly about, and not only yourself, but it comes across all the ministries. Education, there's some things happening there. In the Ministry of Natural Resources, there's some things happening there. Why are you putting so much emphasis on entrepreneurship?
Actually, it is a responsibility of the government to make sure that there's sufficient economic activity to offer employment to the citizens of the country, and also to offer opportunities for new ventures and growth in business. And so, sensing that responsibility, then there's a drive from all of us to be able to do it. There's a drive from the education sector to educate our young people, through the school and through the college, and to sort of teach them, educate them whole area of entrepreneurship, right? And also to sort of inculcate critical thinking so that we can be more innovative in what we do.
Yeah.
This is why, we rebranded the Department of Trade. So become now the Department of Trade, Investment Promotion, and Consumer Affairs. Yeah. I want them to particularly focus on investment promotion, both inward investment and also investment within the BVI. Good. Small business development is one of the things that is important to any society. And that's why we created the Small Business Bureau. And we've had some successes there. And when I had a meeting with the National Bank, they pointed out to some of the successes. Right? And I expect that as we continue to review what we do with the Bureau, that we get more success in that area. And hence the ability to grow new businesses, and also to be so that our people can be able to enjoy participating in the growth of the BVI. Yeah.
Good. I have one last question, Premier, that is not about economics, entrepreneurship, or China or London, and it's for you to answer. If you choose to answer it or not, it's okay. I always ask it though. What keeps you up at night? What stops you from sleeping at night sometimes? I know you're someone who's up at later time. What is it that keeps you up at night? What bothers you? What things that we need to be looking at?
When I go to bed, I go to sleep.
So nothing keeps you up at night.
But really, what does as a constant concern is the responsibility of myself and my colleagues, the government, really, to continue to develop the economy of the country, right? Because whenever I hear that people are not employed, that concerns me. Yeah. Whenever we have a graduation where we have 250 young people out of school, that concerns me. How are we going to provide employment opportunities, opportunities for business for these young people? And so these are the things that I think occupy my time, my mind all the time, occupy myself and my colleagues. How can we provide to continue to grow the economy and also to provide the social structure that is necessary for the young and the old. And that is why we have been doing some of the things we've been doing, and that is why we continue to meet together as colleagues and with other people in the community to be able to address those issues. And speaking of that, I'm also very pleased that apart from government, many other groups in the community basically getting involved. For example, the other day I went to the Kidpreneurs? Kidpreneurs, yeah. And I was quite impressed. Yeah. The work that Mrs. Harrigan is doing with the young people, the age group, 6 to 13?
14 at
6 to 14. And the things that these kids produce, I was very, very impressed. So it's not only Mrs. Harrigan, but other groups are becoming very much involved in helping develop the entrepreneurship of the people and the young people, and that could only be good for us.
Yeah. Well, we follow your lead.
Good.
Certainly, it's and we're gonna see a little bit of what those kids have done on the back end of today. So those of you who are not able to see, you'll certainly have a chance to do so today. Prima, I want to thank you for your time and your response to my questions. I hope that it wasn't too probing, but I'm sure. I hope it was useful to our audience. If you're willing, we can entertain one or two questions if anyone has one. Is there a burning question that you want to ask the Premier? That was a chance. Don't be shy. Okay. Well,
no, there'll be lots of time during the
during the
information
coffee
as
breaks and what have you too.
And I'm certainly looking forward to
yes.
the rest of the program where you can hopefully learn something new.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for coming.
Good.
I really appreciate you being here.
Okay. Right.